Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be going into how to get started on our platformer game. So to get started, we're going to create a brand new project. We're going to hit new. Of course, we're going to do it in Game Maker language. Select this, and then it'll ask you for a name. I'm just going to call this one platformer example. You, of course, will give it a more appropriate name fitting for you. Now that we're here, we're going to cover a couple of new bits, some things different from how we did it in our first game. So starting off, we of course need to create our sprites. And quickly just create two very simple sprites. This sprite, I'm simply going to call this one our SPR_player. Nothing fancy, and I'm going to jump into this, and I'm just going to make it an entire, let's see, a nice teal color. That's close enough. This is my player sprite. Nothing fancy, it's literally just a square. I'm good here. I'm going to create another sprite. This is going to be my SPR wall. This will represent the outlines of my walls for my world. Let's see, I'll make this one like a gray color, maybe something. There we go, that looks okay. Save that. Now I have a sprite for the wall, a sprite for a player. We're good to go in that respect. Now I need to create two objects. And so my first object, the easier of the two, is going to be the object for the wall. obj_wall. And we're going to select the wall sprite. There we go. Everything else in here is good. Close that one out. We're done with that one for the time being. The next action we're going to do is create an object for our player. obj_player. Select the sprite for our player. Everything is good for that. And now we have to go in and add a create event. We're going to have a couple of variables that we're going to do. And so over here, in case you didn't know, you can hit F8 to increase the zoom in on, or increase the font size. This is going to be just initializing variables. And so first I'm going to have my horizontal speed. This is set equal to 0. Horizontal speed. Next, I'm going to have a vertical speed. This is also set equal to 0. Then I will have my gravity. I'm going to set this one to 0.3. This is gravity, and they're more appropriately acceleration, gravity. And then I'm going to specify my walking speed. Walk SP is equal to 4. And this is my walking speed. So of course it's going to throw out a little alert saying that, hey, you haven't used these yet. And of course we haven't. We have not yet jumped into the work to make use of any of these variables. But this is something that you can go back in, modify, play around with to change up how your game interacts. Maybe you want to increase gravity, decrease gravity, a few other things, up to you. And with that, let's go ahead and, yeah, I think we're good there. Oh, we can also change jumping height or jumping speed. Jump speed is equal to, I'm going to set mine to -7. Okay, we've got all that set up. Let's go ahead and add a step event. And so this will handle all of our movement logic, at least for the time being. We're going to have to break down into a couple of different sections. First section is going to handle our player input. This is going to be where it diverges a little on how we had set it up in our first game, just because of the difference in how we're going to interact with the stuff and how we're going to change the calculations. This will be perhaps a little bit more advanced than how we did it the first time, but it's going to give us a lot more freedom and reduce the amount of code that we've got to write for a lot of these actions. So we first address player input, then we're going to do our movement calculations. And we're going to address jumping, and then horizontal movement, and then vertical movement. And I think that's all we've got to address. Let's go ahead and start throwing stuff in here. So first part, addressing player input. We're going to make a couple of variables. Key left, this is just for us to check if the keyboard has noticed that the left arrow key has been pressed. We're also going to have key right. I can copy and just paste that and swap out left for right, and we're going to swap this out. So if the right key has been pressed, then this will have a Boolean true, Boolean false. Then key jump. This will give us, we're going to do another keyboard check, but rather than just seeing if it has been held down, we're actually going to do keyboard pressed. This is going to check to see if in this particular step, this frame, if the button was just pressed. If you're holding it down and you held it down from a previous frame as well, this is going to say no, false. So it's only going to give us true the frame that we press it. We have to release it and then press it again in order for it to work. And so this is going to be the virtual keyboard for spacebar. Now we figured out, okay, are they pressing the left key? Are they pressing the right key? And then did they jump? Did they just press spacebar this frame and they weren't pressing it the previous frame? Now that we've gotten that input, let's figure out what direction we're going to be moving. Var move is going to be equal to key right minus key left. And so this determines the sign slash direction for movement. If we press the right key, that's true, that's 1. If we press the left key, that's true, and that's 1. So if we press both of them down, 1 minus 1 is 0, so we wouldn't move at all. But if we're pressing just the right key, that would be moving towards the positive X direction, then we just have 1. If we're pressing just the left key, that would be moving in the negative X direction. Minus or 0 minus 1 would give us -1, and that would match out. And so our horizontal movement speed would be equal to move times our walking speed. And so we now are updating our horizontal movement speed to compensate for that. Our vertical movement speed is simply equal to our plus equals to our current speed plus gravity. Gravity is going to impact this and constantly be pulling us down. We account for that here. So this does our initial movement calculations. We're good here. Let's handle jumping. If we're going to do a new function, place meeting. This is going to check if in our X position and Y plus 1 pixel, so 1 position down below us, if we see the wall object. This is just checking to make sure that we're right on top of a wall. That way, whenever we're standing on the wall, we can jump. This is to make sure that we can't, for instance, double jump or jump on top of in the middle of the air. Maybe you want to allow for that. We can play around with that in the future. But in this case, we're not going to allow for double jumping, a single jump only if you are on an actual platform. So making sure that you're standing right above the ground and the jump key has been pressed. If this is true, we're standing right above the ground and the jump key has been pressed. Then our vertical speed is simply set equal to our jump speed. We're going to make our speed suddenly become -7. We're jumping. And then every frame, gravity modifies it slightly, but we can at least jump for a little bit of time. And so now that we've got this, we can jump and we can move left and right. Let's go ahead and test this portion before we address anything else. We're going to have a couple of issues. Gravity is going to, of course, throw us into the ground and we're going to fall through the floor. Then we're going to be able to move into the walls. And so it's not perfect, it's not complete. We can test that just so you can see that, but we run into those issues. We have nothing stopping us from gravity just yanking us all the way off of the map. And so we're going to have to be checking something with our horizontal movement and vertical movement for collisions. This will bring in the next part. If the place meeting between x plus our horizontal movement speed, current y value, and object underscore wall, is there a wall right next to us after we are going to complete a movement? So this checks right before we actually move. Are we going to end up running into a wall? If we do, then we're going to go ahead and slowly inch ourselves towards that wall. So long as we have not collided into the wall, x plus the sign of our movement. So if it's positive, it's just going to add 1. If it's negative, we're going to subtract 1. It's just based off what direction we're moving, we're going to move 1 pixel that way. Maintain our current y position, obj underscore wall. Let me expand this a bit. And so while we have not yet hit the wall, we're going to slowly move x plus equals sign of our horizontal movement speed. So based off whatever direction we're going, in the positive x direction or the negative x direction, we're going to do plus equals 1 or -1. This will move us 1 pixel at a time until we're as close as possible to the wall. Then we're going to make sure our horizontal movement speed is set to 0. That way it doesn't allow us to move into the wall or move any further. Once we've done that, we can just add plus equals our horizontal movement speed, 2x. That'll update x and we'll either move if everything's fine, or in this case, if we're going to run into the wall, it'll stop us and we're not going to actually end up moving. We will actually do the exact same thing in the y direction. And so let's change this. It is now y plus the sign, the direction of our vertical movement speed. And so we're going to move, and we're going to check if after we move either in the positive or negative direction, we would run into the wall. Actually, not sign. It is just VSP. After we move, would we actually be inside of a wall? If we are, okay, well then we've got to fix that and slowly inch towards it. And so rather than our X value receiving this, the Y value would add the sign of VSP, our vertical movement speed. This way we can check, okay, we're going to move one step forward. So long as we're not going into the wall, let's go ahead and update our Y value with the sign of vertical movement speed. So if we're moving up, it'll add to this. If we're moving down, it'll subtract from this just one. Moving us pixel by pixel until we're as close as possible to our wall. Then we're going to set our vertical movement speed to 0. That way we don't go and move through anything. Now we are going to update Y to be plus equals whatever our vertical movement speed. So by default at the start, if we've jumped, we're going to go up by our jumping speed, which is, I set it to -7. Gravity is always impacting it, so gravity is going to always pull down, adding to the movement speed positive 0.3. If we somehow are too close to a wall, we're going to check if in the next frame we would have run into a wall or gone through a wall. Let's go ahead and fix that and address, okay, we're going to slowly inch towards the wall until we actually run into it while we're not in the wall. Move 1 pixel that direction. Once we're as close as physically possible, stop our movement speed to 0, and then we'll be good to go. Now that we've gotten all the coding portion done, let's take a look at our room itself so we can try to play around with this. And so let me minimize this. Actually, I do need to look at this. In the instance layer, let's go ahead and throw the player in there. So of course, I've just got a square. This is going to represent my player. Some of you have already created your player sprites. Good for you. You're already set. I'm just going to keep the square for the moment while we get started. The next video is going to be addressing getting our sprite to be animated and be able to move around and look cool. I've got that there. My next thing is I want to put a wall or build out my wall with the objects. I'm going to make sure I'm clicking on the wall, and a convenient trick for putting down multiple of these, I'm going to hold down Alt on my keyboard, and you see it starts showing the layout of where this would end up going. I'm going to left click and drag, and it'll actually build out a bunch of these on the map. And so I can make a nice, cool little platformer map set up for us. And we'll just leave that be. Go ahead and add a couple of parts, and I'm gonna get rid of a few extra bits that we don't need. We don't end up interacting with these corner spots. All right, that looks good enough. Simple, minimalistic. Let me just add a little bit more to make sure we don't fly off the board. I guess we still could if we went past it, but there we go. Can't go past that. Maybe I'll move you right here just so you don't fly off the board. And that should be good. Okay. We should be trapped inside this little setup. So now that I have built a quick little map, you can of course draw whatever you want. This is just for us to show off and test out how it works. Let's go ahead and run our game. Assuming I spelled everything correctly, we should be good to build it up and test it. And there we go. I can use the arrow keys to move me back and forth. I can use spacebar to jump. I press left, it doesn't let me go into the wall because we had the collision check. Let me jump over, can't go into that wall, and you can see I'm not going through the ground. All of that is working. And based off of our jumping mechanics, we can only jump one block up. 2 blocks is a little too far. So I'm gonna have to make sure I'm careful here. If I fall down, well, I gotta jump up and over. This one's a dangerous one because I can actually get stuck in there. And this one might be a challenge. There we go. Got through that one, but I can't get up here. That's all right, but that's just to show off the concept. And then we're trapped in here, can't move left, can't move right, barely jump high enough just to peek over, but not enough to get over. But there we go, we've got the movement down for a very simple, very basic platformer game. If you have any questions, just let me know in class. Otherwise, that's all we've got for this video. Everyone, have a good one.